Hello, my name is Daniel, and this is the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 32. Hello, everybody. We made it. We made it to episode 32. I took a 1 week break. Sorry about that. Things were a little bit hectic leading into our travels, but as you can see, our backdrop is not the fancy backdrop that you're used to. We are in Dallas, Texas. We're in the Metroplex. We're in Texas for the holidays, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you guys. I'm recording this on December 19th, so we're 5, 6 days out, anticipating the holidays, and we're just really happy to be back home with family. So hopefully you guys are spending the holidays with the people that you care about the most. Podcast is going well. Life update is good. We're gonna have some personal good news, personal good things are happening, that's for sure. So can't really complain. Lots of good things going on. So let's start off the podcast by giving our shout out to our top tier supporter, John Ott. John Ott is our top tier supporter of the podcast. Thank you, John, for your support of the podcast. Join John as a top tier supporter for $10 a month on Anchor or Patreon. You can go down into the description box below. You can be a top tier supporter of the podcast, and you'll get a shout out at the beginning of every single episode of the podcast. Also, if you want to write to the podcast, you can send in to Daniel at engringsuccess.com. Oh, yeah. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'll notice that is a little bit different. I have a website now. My website is engringsuccess.com, engineeringsuccess.com, engineeringsuccess.com. And you can write into the podcast by emailing Daniel at engineeringsuccess.com. And if you email the old email address, the Gmail, then I'll get it there too. But I'm going to be starting to roll out my new communication and my new domain name. So hope you guys like it. I'm spending money on it, just taking the time to make the investment, and I'm pretty happy about it. All right, what else? I think that's all the intro stuff. So, what else is coming up with the podcast? We are anticipating a interview with Mark Levine. I know I hinted that at the last episode. I've just been busy, but now that we're settled and I'm going to have some time off, I'm going to spend a little bit of time writing up an interview for him and a couple other people. I'm going to try to get a couple interviews lined up over the holidays, so that'll be exciting. And yeah, the podcast is growing. We're up over 8,000 views on YouTube, over 2,000 plays on all the different podcast aggregators. So definitely trending in the right direction with the podcast. So thank you guys for your support of the podcast, and make sure to check out the new website, engringsuccess at engringsuccess.com. I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. I'm so used to putting the dot there, but it's engringsuccess.com, engineeringsuccess.com. All right, let's get into the podcast. You know what it is, guys. You know what it is. It is time for some LinkedIn lunatics. All right, here we go. So this one's fun. Let me zoom in a little bit. There it is. Featured in LinkedIn top news. Let's zoom out just a little bit. Right. During a robbery in Zimbabwe. This is captioned things you can learn from an armed robbery. During a robbery in Zimbabwe, the bank robber shouted to everyone in the bank, "Don't move. The money belongs to the state. Your life belongs to you." Everyone in the bank laid down quietly. This is called mind-changing concept, changing the conventional way of thinking. When a lady lay on the table provocatively, the robber shouted at her, "Please be civilized. This is a robbery and not another R word that I will not say on the podcast." This is called being professional. Focus only on what you are trained to do. When the bank robbers returned home, the younger robber, MBA trained, told the older robber, "Big brother, let's count how much we got." Older robber said, "You are very stupid. There is so much money it will take us a long time to count. Tonight, the TV news will tell us how much we robbed from the bank. This is called experience. Nowadays, experience is more important than paper qualifications. After the robbers had left, the bank manager told the bank supervisor to call the police quickly, but the supervisor said to him, "Wait, let us take out 10 million from the bank for ourselves and add it to the 70 million that we have previously embezzled from the bank." This is called swim with the tide, converting an unfavorable situation to your advantage. The supervisor says it will be good if there's a robbery every month. This is called killing boredom. Personal happiness is more important than your job. The next day, the TV news reported that 100 million was taken from the bank. The robbers counted and counted and counted and counted, but they could only count 20 million. The robbers were very angry and complained, "We risked our lives and only took 20 million. The bank manager took 80 million. It looks like it's better to be educated than to be a thief." This is called knowledge is worth as much as gold. The bank manager and the supervisor were all smiling and happy after all. Hashtag job, hashtag experience, hashtag money, hashtag happiness, hashtag MBA, hashtag India. Awesome. All right, so this was an actual LinkedIn post, and as you can see there, there's a picture of people laying on the ground in the midst of this robbery. So, lot to unpack here. Um, so this individual decided to take a bank robbery and a word that starts with an R that's not a word that I'll say on my podcast, and use that as an analogy to explain innovative business strategies. And I'll tell you, I mean, I want to get an MBA today, but this is like the epitome of trashing on MBAs, memes, level of content. I mean, people complain about people with an MBA that don't know anything that come in and try to take over a business or run an operation. This is like the complete definition of that. And again, I'm not devaluing an MBA. I want to get an MBA. I think that they're very valuable, but gosh, this is insane. This is ridiculous. Relating a robbery and embezzlement to a positive swim of the tide. Um, Good if there be a robbery. That's killing boredom. And knowledge is worth as much as gold, but definitely wouldn't advise encouraging an armed robbery on your LinkedIn page. Um, though, I mean, this it's just pretty horrible. I guess the moral of the story is theft is okay. Um, and this is apparently a pretty common repost on LinkedIn. And so it was lazy of them to repost it, first of all. And second of all, it's a stupid analogy. So, no, I don't take any moral to the story of that one. So, I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10. That's a lunatic. Speaking of reposts, here's our next one. It didn't happen just once, but 6 times. So, there's a good one. Let me grow this a little bit. Pull that out so you can see the whole thing. There you go. This one's titled, "It Didn't Happen Just Once, but 6 times." The cab driver cried in front of me, saying I was his first customer in the last 48 hours. He said his wife is expecting groceries today at least. That virus is going to hit us so many ways, but the people who depend on the daily income are going to get hit. I gave the guy an extra blah, 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 blah. My gosh. So not only are people not generous, but they're doing copy paste just to show that they're generous and make some comments about the virus. And this was posted 4 days ago, which so this was probably a post that was went viral in the first months of the coronavirus. And here we are 2 years later in 2022, and people are still posting content that is reposted from early days of the coronavirus. So, yeah, LinkedIn is devolving, unfortunately. And that is one of my, I guess, recurring points that I make on the podcast. But um, yeah, so that's what I have to say. LinkedIn's devolving. I mean, that, or this is a good idea. Maybe the cab driver is selling the same story to every single one of the LinkedIn lunatics, which maybe that's a little sob story that they're using to make a little extra money. But hey, word of advice, people: if you want to go be famous on LinkedIn, notice how these people don't really have that much engagement. This stuff doesn't really do much for you, so don't don't do it. Write your own stuff. Write your own generic LinkedIn posts. And if you really want to become a LinkedIn influencer, you got to remember that what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to write one line, then hard return, new line. Each sentence needs to be its own line. So remember, if you want to make it big on LinkedIn. Anyways, yeah, guys, just post your personal updates on LinkedIn. Don't post this crap. All right, that's this week in LinkedIn Lunatics. Do I sound distracted? I am. All right, we're going to take a quick ad break and then we'll be right back. And we're back. All right, the next question is future of chemical engineers without O&G. And I imagine that they're saying without oil and gas. That's just what I'm going to guess. So they say, for now, oil and gas is a major employer of chemical engineers. So my question is simple. What will happen to all these chemical engineers when we shift to renewables or some other sort of energy production? What will happen then? I am just a final year student. So I'm going to give them a break on this. It's a reasonable question for somebody that is a final year student in college to ask. So I want to remind. So I think that a lot of people that don't work in the energy industry don't have the contextual understanding to know that energy is not just oil and gas, you know, traditional oil and gas, and then renewables. It's not just going to be we go from one to the next, and then and that's something that a lot of our policymakers don't know either. But energy production is the transition for energy towards more renewable society of energy generation is not going to just go flip a switch. You can't just say, "Hey, we're going to do solar. We're going to go 100% solar." It's not going to happen. Just like how the concept of being 100% carbon neutral, people are they're not American Airlines is not flying their planes in a carbon neutral manner. They're buying energy credits to offset their carbon productions. Anyways, we maybe we can go into that in another episode of the podcast if you're interested. If you're interested, you want to learn more about how the energy credit industry works, I will do a deep dive and do some research and get back to you in another episode of the podcast. So comment down below if you want a deep dive in the carbon tax and carbon energy credit industry. Um, but okay, it's just not gonna it's not going to be a flip of a switch. So we're in right now what I'd call the energy transition. So a lot of those engineers that have worked for the typical like the Chevrons, the Exxons, they're still working for them and they're working as part of the energy transition. For example, one of the biggest things that's going on right now is natural gas. And you say oil and gas, natural gas. Yes, but again, natural gas is much cleaner energy source than your traditional alternative, which is coal. So natural gas, the biggest thing that's going on right now, big buzzwords is LNG. LNG is liquefied natural gas. So bringing the natural gas out of the ground. We're piping in pipelines to an export terminal. At that export terminal, they are converting it into liquefied natural gas. They're putting it on massive tanker ships, and then they're powering entire countries. So, um, one example of that is Golden Pass LNG in Sabine Pass, Texas. And Golden Pass LNG is owned by ExxonMobil. They own a 30% stake. And then I think the other 70% um, is Qatar Energy. So Qatar Energy owns 70% and ExxonMobil owns 30%. So these companies that are really experienced, very well known oil and gas companies, they're involved in the energy transition. So the companies that are working for those companies that you think that would get phased out without oil and gas, um, they're going to be those same companies are going to be the companies that are at the forefront of the energy transition. So that's one big thing there, and also on the consulting side, um, I work for a large EPC firm, and we do construction jobs for natural gas facilities. We do construction jobs for power plants. We do construction jobs for food processing facilities. The engineers that work in the chemical engineers that work in consulting companies, I mean, they're not necessarily doing the design of all the OEM original equipment manufacturer equipment that's actually doing the proprietary processes. So what they're doing is they're integrating and they're building entire systems. So those chemical engineers, I mean, it's take a unit ops class. If you're a final year student, you might have taken a unit ops class or um, a what was the class called? Dr. Udine, I'm sorry, I have forgotten the name of the other class that I took from you where we did plant simulations. But it's just material balances. It's all about material balances. A lot of those chemical engineers working in consulting are doing material balances for different processes and different systems. So there's always going to be different processes and systems that they can work in. And then the ones that are doing R&D, well, they're going to continue to do R&D in some of the most cutting edge technologies in the renewable energy or energy transition market. And these same companies, another big thing right now is hydrogen for they're blending hydrogen with natural gas for power generation. Um, Ammonia is a big thing right now, and it's a lot of the same petrochemical and oil and gas companies that are involved in these new budding technologies. They have the financial resources and they have the desire to be involved in energy. So it'll be a lot of the same major companies as we get further and further along the energy transition towards a more renewable society. So, what I'd say is those engineers are going to be they're going to have plenty of opportunities for employment, and honestly, that transition is not going to happen fully, or I don't even know what fully is, but that transition is going to be occurring throughout our lifetime. So, many of those people will even retire before their expertise would theoretically phase out. And also, I want to also just close with this that oil and gas is not going away. Um, Oil, especially, is not going away. There's a really cool graphic on what you can make with a barrel of oil. Let me let me see if I can find this. So, um, let's find this. What can you make with a barrel of oil? And it's a really cool image graphic that I saw. Here it is. So here's what can be made with 1 barrel of oil. That's not the right screen. Sorry, back to me. Let's try this. Let's save this image to my downloads. Let's uh, transition to this one. Let's add an image, add image. Let me upload this file. I'm sorry, guys. All right, here it comes. So, what can you make from a barrel of oil? And again, this is not me like simping for the oil industry. This is just me being kind of realistic about what you can make with a barrel of oil, which is kind of interesting. So, with one barrel of oil, um, you can make wax, you can make asphalt, you can make lubricants, you can make charcoal. You can make toothbrushes, you can make combs, you can make plastic drinking cups, you can make all these different things. So our society is way too reliant on plastic, which is a major byproduct of oil, for it ever to become irrelevant. So yeah, it's going to be around for forever. So um, what's going to happen is these chemical engineers that work in oil and gas are going to fit in. They're going to transition, and their companies are going to, as they pivot, they'll get moved around. But um, there is a future for chemical engineers as we continue along this energy transition. There is. All right. Next question. All right. Here's one. Asked for the salary range, got told, buddy, you're rustling some feathers here. After 15 minutes of being bombarded by questions like, tell me about your current responsibilities and what has your greatest accomplishment been? So now it's forum questions, but over the phone. I finally get a word in to ask about the role. Pushed on salary range and got told, you're rustling some feathers here. The hiring manager will decide what the salary is after the interview process. Yeah, no thanks. I have 10 years of experience, a full time job, and other interviews. If there isn't a clear cut range in the first call, I'm afraid I can't play these games. Name and shame, ACI Worldwide. So, yeah, the hiring market is competitive. Um, and kudos to this person for valuing their time and valuing themselves enough to not bother wasting their time. Yeah, is it more common that salary gets talked about in the second interview? Yes, but that you should at least be as part of your application. You should set in a range. So asking them to confirm that their salary expectations are within the range that you sent in on your application, I think is the bare minimum. So yeah, companies are going to really have to. I mean, now, hiring market is kind of shifting. I feel like depending on the industry you work in, it's still pretty favorable for the employee, but we're definitely heading in the opposite direction. So it may not be potential employees might have to start putting up with a little bit more, but for those of us that's are still employed um, and aren't experiencing massive layoffs in our industry quite yet. Um, we can kind of push back on this. So, yeah, you're rustling some feathers here. Onward and upward. Continue to rustle those feathers, guys. I just think that that's kind of insane that they wouldn't at least establish the salary range as part of the interview process and be weirded out by you wanting to establish that at your first point of contact before you bother spending any more time with them. So, good on you. All right. Next question. Should I reschedule my interview for my exams? I just got a reply from a super reputable company and they want to schedule a 30-minute interview this week for an internship I applied for. As a first year, I know I am super underqualified for this position and I cherish greatly for this interview opportunity. However, I have two 50% exams happening this week. So, for those who don't know, exams worth 50% of their final grade. And I feel like I won't be able to prepare for either of them fully if I decide to take on both this week. I guess I'm just scared it somehow they won't reschedule and I will lose this opportunity. Please give me some advice. Thanks. So they asked this question last week, and I'd say that it doesn't hurt to ask. because it's a 30-minute interview. And yes, there's a chance that your person might be going on vacation this week, the week before Christmas. But there's also a chance that they won't be. And it doesn't hurt to ask. And by you asking, say, "Hey, I have all the exams coming up. It's a really busy week for me. Um, I could fit it in. I totally could fit it in, but I'd rather focus on my time this week and prioritize studying for my exam. So if it's all possible for this to be next week, that would really help me out." That actually, in my opinion, shows really well for you. It shows the opposite of bad. It shows that you know how to prioritize things. And that's a really good skill that they want in a potential employee. And the fact that you even thought about it and didn't just go with it because you're just that eager and you wanted it that bad, which you are eager and you want it that bad. But we all in our careers, there's a lot of things we want. We always want to get things done, but we always have to be able to prioritize and get done the things that are the most important. And we have to do that for our company. We have to do that for ourselves. And in your case, you have to do it for you as a student that's trying to get an internship. So, um, worst case scenario, they say no, we can't reschedule. But but you asking and saying, hey, is it okay if we do a different time? That's not going to hurt you, in my opinion. That's not going to hurt you. So go for it. Go ahead and ask them, and if they say no, then it's probably because they're going on holiday or something. But it does not hurt at all for you to ask. So go for it. Ask away. All right. Next question. Best way to prepare for a 21 credit semester? My initial plan was to study Calc 2 in the winter break so I have a good head start, and that I could have more focus on my other classes. I've noticed I've slowly become fairly lazy. I've been procrastinating until the last minute, where previous semesters were that was unheard of for me. I do not want to burn myself out. I feel burnt out already, and I'm struggling to finish strong. Should I focus on gaining my discipline back and taking a well deserved break? My next semester will include Calc 2, Physics 1, Linear Algebra, Chem 2, Engineering 2, and Russian 2. Okay. Ready for this? The best way you should prepare for your 21 credit hour semester is by not taking 21 credit hours. I know, a little bit aggressive, but yeah, is why are Calc 2? Maybe I'm kind of confused why Calc 2 and linear algebra are both on your schedule at the same time. If you can't avoid it, then save Russian 2. Maybe you could take Russian 2 in the summer online. I don't know how your university works, but a lot of universities they'll allow you to transfer in your language credits from somewhere else. So I would try to maybe drop Russian 2 or maybe not take both Calc 2 and linear algebra at the same time, because if you're already burnt out, a 18 credit hour semester for an engineering student is a massive load. So adding a whole extra class is insane because what you're doing is you're adding effectively 12 hours of schoolwork to your week. You have 3 hours that you're going to be taking in class, and then the rule of thumb is for every hour in class is not that's 3 hours outside of class. So 3 plus 3 times 3 equals 9. 3 plus 9 equals 12. So it's 12 hours your week. So if you're already feeling burnt out and you're already procrastinating, first of all, it sounds like you're probably not going to prep over the summer. Over the winter break. And then, how many hours are there in a week? All right. So you have 7 times 24, right? So now let's subtract the 18 minus 18 for the 18 hours you're going to spend in class. Now minus 18 times 3. Now you're down to 96 hours. Now you're going to need, I don't know, 6 hours of sleep a night. Let's go 7 hours of sleep at night if we're being generous. So that's minus 7 times 7 is 49. 49 hours. So now you're down to 47 hours. So in your week, you are now down to 47 hours. So in that 47 hours, you can eat, you can sleep, you can spend time with your friends. You can spend some of that time commuting to class, getting back from class, just resting. Um, but now you're going to take another 12 hours away from that. So now you're taking 12 out of 47 hours. So of all the disposable time that you have, you're taking 12, one fourth of it, 25% of all the disposable time you had left. You're cutting it by 25%. And you now are down to 36 available hours in your week to do not school and not sleep. That's insanity. So no, don't take a 21 credit hour semester. That's insane. That's ridiculous. Why would you do such a thing? Um, so if you can all avoid it, don't do it. That is what I'd say. Don't take a 21 credit semester. If you're doing this because of some nonsense that you want to graduate engineering early or something, why? Why? Don't do this. Don't do this. Please don't do this. All right. All right. Next question. Fiance and I are having a debate. Is the short name for calculus calc or cal? Okay, the answer to this is calc. Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3. Not Cal. None of this nonsense about Cal. So she says, I never heard of anyone call it anything other than Calc. I'm a senior mechanical engineering student, but she, bio major, insists that it's Cal. Okay, she's wrong. You, as an engineering major, you're basically earning a math minor as part of your engineering degree. So you're no, it's Calc, not Cal. Maddie, is it Calc or Cal? I've always heard Calc. Thank you. Maddie says it's Calc. All right. So the people of my podcast, it's Calc. Luca, is it Calc or Cal? Luca says Calc. All right. So the answer is Calc. All right. One last question. The last question is, what advice would you give to an overworked person serving the final 2 weeks of their notice period? I have a 3-month notice period. I did all my work diligently for 2 months, gave knowledge transfer to the replacement, and went above and beyond what was asked. I assumed I would be relieved of a lot of responsibilities in the last month, but my manager is bent on giving me new responsibilities, and I don't see her making an effort to put the other people on the spotlight or even make them take the lead. Now down to 2 weeks, and I still have to take the lead for the new work. And my manager is trying to do the impossible and set the target for finishing the work in 2 weeks, which is impossible as it involves third parties whose availability is very limited. I cannot help but feel bad, as they never asked me to stay or appreciated my work. I cannot slack off as it is not in my nature to shrink from responsibilities. But it does feel like I am letting myself be drained and used. You are. Weirdest thing is my manager is not satisfied with my best anymore. She wants it all done at any cost, and there's no limit for her. Work till you drop dead without a timeline. Also, she called me separately and said I should not try not to destroy my career in the last months. Kinda a veiled threat, if you ask me. Here's what you do. Screw your manager. You gave them the 3-month notice period to offload you, and they decided to load you up with more responsibilities. Screw that. Screw that. No. If you are a person that works 40 hours a week, show up and work exactly 40 hours a week for the last 2 weeks. Don't work anymore. As your manager berates you, let them know that she should not try to destroy her career in the last couple months. And tell them to, well, don't, you may not say that, but th- this is not the kind of person that whose opinion you should really value. This is ridiculous. Everything that's happening is this manager's fault for not being able to manage the transition time. You gave them a 3-month notice. That is way more notice than you should be required to give them. Let's see where are you? Are you in a place with at will employment? Like, yeah. Do the relax. And it's just you're not screwing anybody over when you're giving them 3 months notice. That's insane. So just work it out, work out the rest of your period, and then block their number. If they call you afterwards, just ask them if they'd like to employ you as a contractor. I mean, if it's like anything other than like a basic little, hey, where's this question? But yeah, screw them. They obviously don't know how to manage transitioning their employees. So anything that happens negatively is on them. So wish you the best of luck, but give yourself a break. Take it easy on yourself and just kind of work and do what you can in your normal work hours and that's it. And You've done your work of trying to hand things off, and if your manager handed off new responsibilities to you without giving you the opportunity to transition those things to other people, then that's kind of on them. So, man, this manager of yours has really done a poor job of setting themselves up for failure. So, I wouldn't want to be them, but cheers to you for getting out of that situation. All right, guys. You've wasted another perfectly good hour, as my friends on Car Talk would say. Actually, it's only been 35 minutes, but you've spent a nice 35 minutes hanging out with me on this episode of the Engineering Success Podcast. Thank you for listening. Make sure to rate the podcast 5 stars. Leave a comment down below. Your engagement really helps me out, and consider supporting the podcast on Patreon or Anchor. Really appreciate your support, and I will catch you in the next one.
I just made a pilot,
Thanks.
then they threw me on the stations. Now I'm not complaining, now I'm not complaining. My thoughts get complicated, I cannot explain in layman's. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.